The morning sun rose slowly over the small town of Grayhill, painting the sky in soft gold. The streets were quiet except for the sound of footsteps and the low hum of cars heading to work. Among those early risers was a man named Ryan. He walked with tired eyes and heavy steps, his old brown jacket zipped halfway, and his shoes worn from years of use. Ryan was a single father. His wife had passed away 3 years ago, leaving behind their little daughter, Lila. She was 8 now, bright, kind, and full of questions that often made Ryan smile even when he was exhausted. But life had not been kind to him. Work was hard to find, and the small jobs he did barely covered rent, food, and Lila's school fees. Every morning, Ryan left home before sunrise. He worked as a delivery driver for a local store. The pay was little, but he took pride in being honest and hardworking. He never wanted Lila to feel they were poor, even though their small apartment was old and the walls needed paint. That morning, he kissed Lila on the forehead before leaving. She was still asleep, her small arms hugging her old stuffed bear. He whispered softly, "I'll be back soon, my little sunshine." By 7 o'clock, Ryan was already on the road. The weather was cool and the streets were starting to fill. He had a list of deliveries to make, and his boss, Mr. Han, had warned him not to be late again. The old van he drove made strange noises, but Ryan had learned how to handle it like a friend who needed patience. As the day went on, he made several stops. He carried heavy boxes, greeted customers with a polite smile, and ignored the pain in his back. When lunchtime came, he sat inside the van and ate the simple sandwich he had packed. Sometimes he thought about how his life might have been if his wife was still there, but then he would shake his head and remind himself, "No use in thinking that way. I have to keep going for Lila." The afternoon brought him to the richer side of Grayhill. The houses there were large, surrounded by tall fences and shining cars parked in driveways. He always felt out of place in that area. He had grown up in small neighborhoods, never among people who had money. As he stopped in front of one of the elegant houses, he noticed an elderly woman in a light blue coat standing by the gate. She looked frail but graceful. Her hair was white and neatly tied, and she held a walking stick in her left hand. Ryan thought she might be waiting for someone. He parked his van and stepped out with a package. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he greeted kindly. "I have a delivery for number 32. The woman gave a small smile. "That's this house, young man." She reached for the parcel, but before Ryan could hand it to her, he noticed something strange. Her hand trembled. Her face turned pale and her eyes suddenly widened. The next moment she gasped and clutched her chest. "Ma'am!" Ryan shouted in alarm as she collapsed to the ground. The package fell beside her. Without wasting a second, he ran to her side and knelt down. "Can you hear me?" he asked quickly, trying to keep his voice steady. She didn't respond. Her breathing was shallow and her face was turning gray. Ryan's heart pounded. He had never been in such a situation before. But he knew this was serious. She was having a heart attack. He looked around, hoping someone would come to help, but the street was empty. He took out his phone with shaking hands and dialed emergency services. "There's an old woman here. She collapsed," he said hurriedly, giving the address. "Please send an ambulance quickly." The operator told him to stay calm and check her breathing. Ryan followed the instructions carefully, trying to remember everything he had seen in safety videos. He gently placed her flat on the ground and started pressing her chest to help her heart. His hands moved rhythmically, press, release, while he prayed in his mind that she would survive. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the ambulance siren echoed in the distance. Ryan didn't stop until the paramedics arrived. They took over and thanked him for acting fast. One of them said, "You saved her life, sir. If you hadn't done CPR, she might not have made it." Ryan sighed deeply, his heart still racing. "Will she be okay?" "She's in critical condition, but you gave her a chance. We'll do our best," the medic replied before closing the doors of the ambulance. Ryan stood there breathing heavily as the vehicle drove away. His clothes were dusty, his hands shaking, but he felt something strange inside him. Relief mixed with sadness. He didn't even know her name, yet he hoped she would live. He picked up the fallen package and saw her name printed on it. "Mrs. Elora Winton." He repeated it quietly. "Mrs. Elora, I hope you'll be fine." Then he got back into his van and continued his deliveries, his mind still replaying the moment she fell. When he finally returned home that evening, Lila ran to him and hugged his legs. "Papa, you're late today," she said, pouting slightly. "I know, my sunshine. Something happened on the way," he said softly, stroking her hair. She looked up at him curiously. "Something bad?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I helped someone today. An old lady was sick and I called the ambulance. She'll be okay, I hope." Lila's eyes widened. "You helped someone? That's so nice, Papa." Her words warmed his heart. He sat down beside her and listened to her talk about her school drawings and her friend Mina. For a few minutes, he forgot about his tiredness and the worries of life. Later that night, when Lila was asleep, Rian sat by the small window and looked outside. The moon was bright, lighting the quiet street. He thought again about the old woman. Something about her face stayed in his mind. She had looked lonely before she fell. He didn't know why, but he wished he could check on her. Yet he told himself it wasn't his place. She was probably from a rich family, and people like him didn't belong in their world. He sighed and went to bed, not knowing that his life was about to change forever because of the woman he had saved. The next morning, Ryan woke up to the sound of his phone ringing. He rubbed his eyes and answered sleepily. "Hello? Mr. Ryan?" a woman's voice asked politely. "This is the Gray Hill General Hospital. Are you the person who helped Mrs. Alora Winton yesterday?" "Yes, I was," Ryan said quickly, now fully awake. "Is she okay?" "She's stable now," the nurse said kindly. "She asked to meet you when you have time. She wants to thank you in person." Rian was surprised. "She remembers me?" "Yes, she said you saved her life. She's very grateful." For a few seconds he didn't know what to say. Then he replied softly, "I'll come by after work." That day, Ryan worked faster than usual. His boss noticed and even gave him a small smile for once. When his shift ended, he cleaned up and headed straight to the hospital. When he entered the room, he saw the same elderly woman lying on the bed, looking weak but smiling warmly. "You came," she said in a gentle voice. "Please, sit down." Ryan sat beside her, feeling shy. "I'm glad you're okay, ma'am." She looked at him closely.
"What's your name, young man?"
"Ryan," he said simply. "Ryan," she repeated as if tasting the sound. "I owe you my life." He shook his head quickly. "No, ma'am. Anyone would have done the same." Her eyes softened. "No, not everyone would have. Many would have just walked away." For a few moments there was silence. Then she asked, "You look tired." "You must work hard." Rian smiled faintly. "I do what I can. I have a little girl to take care of." "A daughter?" "Yes, her name is Lila. She's 8. Alora's eyes warmed even more. "You must love her very much." "She's my world," he said quietly. The elderly woman studied him for a long moment, as if seeing something beyond his words, something pure and honest. She didn't say much after that, but before he left, she took his hand. "Ryan," she said softly, "you remind me of someone I once knew. Come visit again soon, will you?" He nodded politely. "Of course, ma'am." When he walked out of the hospital, the evening sky was glowing orange. He felt lighter somehow. He had done something good, and it felt right. What he didn't know was that Mrs. Alora Winton was no ordinary woman. Behind the soft voice and gentle smile was a billionaire who had built companies across the country. She lived alone, surrounded by luxury but starved for kindness. And now, the man who had saved her life, the struggling father who thought he was just a delivery driver, had unknowingly stepped into her world. A world that was about to change both their lives forever. 2 days had passed since Ryan met Mrs. Alora Winton in the hospital. Her gentle voice and kind eyes stayed in his thoughts. Every time he sat inside his van waiting for a traffic light, he found himself wondering how she was doing. Life for Ryan went on as usual, waking early, making deliveries, rushing home to help Lila with her homework. But a small change had begun inside him. For the first time in a long while, he felt noticed. Someone had looked at him not as a tired worker, but as a person who mattered. One evening, when Ryan was helping Lila with her spelling words, there was a knock on the door. Their apartment was on the second floor of an old building, so visitors were rare. He opened the door and found a man in a black suit standing there holding a white envelope. "Good evening," the man said politely. "Are you Mr. Ryan?" "Yes," Ryan replied carefully. "I'm from Mrs. Alora Winton's residence. She asked me to deliver this to you." Ryan took the envelope with surprise. "She sent something for me?" Yes, sir. She also asked me to tell you that she hopes you'll come tomorrow at noon. Before Rian could ask anything else, the man nodded politely and walked away. Lila peeked from behind the door, her curious eyes wide. Who was that, Papa? Ryan smiled faintly. A messenger from the lady I helped. She sent this. He sat down and opened the envelope. Inside was a neat letter written in graceful handwriting. Dear Rian, I would like to see you again. There is something important I wish to discuss. Please come to my home tomorrow at noon. Lunch will be ready. Yours sincerely, Elora Winton. Ryan read the letter twice. His hands trembled slightly. A lunch invitation from a woman who lived in a mansion was something far beyond his simple life. Leela looked at the paper and asked, Is she rich, Papa? He smiled gently. I think so, my sunshine. But that doesn't matter. She's kind. Are you going to her house? She asked eagerly. He nodded slowly. Yes, she said it's important. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep well. He kept wondering what she wanted to talk about. Maybe she just wanted to thank him again, or maybe she needed help with something. He had no idea. The next day, Rian wore his cleanest shirt, the one he usually saved for special days. It was slightly faded but neatly ironed. He made sure Lila's school lunch was packed before he left. She waved from the window. Good luck, Papa. He smiled back. Thank you, my sunshine. By noon, he reached the gate of Elora's grand house. The same tall fences and shining windows stood before him. A guard at the gate recognized him from the hospital visit and opened it without question. The garden inside looked like a picture from a book. Roses in full bloom. A fountain at the center and soft music playing somewhere. Ryan walked slowly up the marble steps until a maid opened the door. Welcome, Mr. Ryan, she said with a warm smile. Mrs. Winton is waiting for you in the dining room. He followed her through a long hallway filled with paintings and soft light. The house smelled of flowers and old books. Finally, they reached a large room with tall windows and a table covered with fine dishes. Elora sat at the end, dressed in a soft, cream-colored gown. She looked much better, still weak but glowing with warmth. Ryan, she said softly, smiling as he entered. I'm glad you came. He bowed slightly, feeling shy. It's good to see you again, ma'am. Please sit down, she said, gesturing to the chair beside her. You must be hungry, he hesitated. I don't want to trouble you, she smiled. It's no trouble at all. You saved my life, remember? They both laughed gently and Ryan finally sat down. The maid served them soup, bread, and roasted vegetables. Everything looked beautiful, though Ryan felt a bit nervous using the shiny silver spoons. As they ate, Elora asked about his life. So you're a delivery driver? She asked kindly. Yes, ma'am, Ryan said. I've been working at the store for a year now. Before that, I did different jobs. Do you enjoy it? She asked, watching his eyes. He smiled faintly. It's honest work. That's what matters. I just wish it paid better sometimes. She nodded slowly. And your daughter Lila, isn't it? His face softened immediately. Yes, Lila, she's 8. Smart and funny. She keeps me going. Elora smiled gently. You must be proud of her. I am, he said with quiet pride. She reminds me that there's still light even in dark days. For a moment, Elora looked away, her eyes misty. You're a good father, Ryan, I can tell. There are not many like you. He looked down, feeling humbled. I just try to do my best. After lunch, she invited him to sit in the garden. The sun was warm and birds sang softly from the trees. They talked for hours, not about money or business, but about life, kindness, and loss. Elora told him about her late husband. He was a man who loved work more than rest, she said with a faint smile. He built many things, but he forgot how to live. Ryan nodded quietly. Sometimes we all forget, ma'am. Life moves too fast. She looked at him deeply. You speak with wisdom, Ryan. More than many I've met in business rooms. He laughed softly. I don't know about wisdom, ma'am. I only know struggle teaches lessons. The sound of her laughter filled the garden. You are different, Ryan. People in this town chase things that don't matter. But you... She paused. You still believe in goodness. As the day turned into afternoon, she asked him a question that surprised him. Ryan, if you had a chance to do something else, what would you do? He blinked, thinking for a moment. I don't know, ma'am. Maybe open a small repair shop. I'm good with fixing things, but dreams like that need money I don't have. Elora nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes dreams need the right moment, not just money. He smiled politely, not understanding her full meaning. Soon he stood up to leave. Thank you for the meal, ma'am. It was the best lunch I've had in years. You're welcome, Ryan, she said warmly. And please call me Elora, he smiled shyly. All right, Elora. As he left the mansion, a strange feeling filled his heart. It wasn't about the fancy food or the big house. It was the kindness in her eyes. Something told him that meeting her was not by chance, it was fate. When he returned home, Lila was waiting with her drawings. How was it, Papa? She asked eagerly. It was nice, he said with a smile.
She's very kind. Did she give you cookies?
Ryan laughed. No cookies, but a lot of food. Lila giggled and ran to her table. Next time, tell her to give you cookies, too. He chuckled and patted her head. That night, as he lay in bed, his mind wandered again. The mansion, the stories she told, the questions she asked, it all felt like something bigger was happening. Meanwhile, in her quiet room, Elora sat by her window, thinking of Ryan. His humble smile and honest words had touched her heart. In her long life, she had met countless people, business partners, lawyers, investors, but no one had looked at her with such sincerity. She had spent years surrounded by luxury, but had forgotten what true kindness felt like. And now this struggling father, with his tired hands and gentle voice, had reminded her of something precious. Elora picked up her phone and called her assistant. David, she said softly. I want you to find out everything you can about Ryan, where he works, his home, his situation, everything. But do it quietly. I don't want him to know yet. Yes, ma'am, David replied. May I ask why? She smiled faintly. Because I want to help him. But I need to understand how. The next few days passed quickly. Ryan continued his work, unaware that someone was quietly watching over his life. David's report soon arrived at Elora's desk. It told a simple but hard story. Ryan's long working hours, his debts, the small apartment, the old van he sometimes repaired himself. It also mentioned how he always paid Lila's school fees on time, no matter how difficult things got. When Elora read it, her eyes filled with tears. He never asked for anything, yet he gives everything, she whispered. That evening, she sat alone in her study and thought deeply. For years, she had donated to charities, built hospitals, and funded schools, but helping Ryan felt different. It was personal. It was gratitude, yes, but also admiration. Finally, she made a decision. The next morning, another envelope arrived at Ryan's door. It was thicker this time, sealed with gold wax. He opened it and found a letter and a folded document inside. Dear Ryan, you once said you wanted to open a repair shop. Dreams deserve a chance. Please accept this small gift, not as payment for saving me, but as a friend who believes in you. Yours, Elora. Inside the envelope was a property deed, the small corner shop at the end of Maple Street signed in his name. Ryan froze. His hands shook as he read the paper again and again. It couldn't be real. Papa, what is it? Lila asked, climbing onto his lap. He looked at her with tears in his eyes. It's a miracle, my sunshine. That was the moment he realized the woman he had saved was not just wealthy, but someone who truly cared. And though he didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of a journey that would test not just his gratitude, but his heart and choices in ways he never imagined. The next morning, Ryan sat at his small kitchen table, staring at the papers in front of him. His hands still trembled as he tried to believe what he was seeing. The golden seal, the elegant handwriting, the official stamp, it was all real. The property deed clearly said, owner Ryan. Lila sat beside him, swinging her legs under the chair. Papa, what does it mean? She asked, her big eyes full of wonder. It means, Ryan said softly, trying to find the right words, that we have a shop now, a place that belongs to us. She gasped and clapped her hands. Really? Like those shops where people fix things? He smiled and nodded. Yes, just like that. I can make it a repair shop like I always dreamed. Lila jumped up with excitement. Then you can fix toys too. My friend Mina's doll is broken. Ryan laughed for the first time in weeks. The sound filled the small apartment with warmth. Maybe we'll start with radios and machines before dolls, all right? He folded the papers carefully and placed them in a drawer. Deep inside, a mix of happiness and worry swirled within him. The gift was too big. Why would a woman like Elora give something like that to a man like him? Later that day, Ryan decided to visit Elora to thank her in person. He didn't want her to think he accepted it without gratitude. After finishing his delivery shift, he bought a small bouquet of fresh daisies, the best he could afford, and took the bus to her mansion. When he arrived, the guards greeted him politely. The moment he stepped inside, Elora appeared in the hall, supported slightly by her cane but smiling warmly. "Ryan, I was hop." Elora's mansion felt unusually quiet that morning. The sun streamed through the tall windows, casting soft golden light across the polished floors. Ryan approached the front gate cautiously, holding a small bouquet of fresh daisies he had picked himself. His heart raced as he walked up the marble steps, thinking about how much his life had changed since the day he helped her. Elora greeted him warmly as he entered the grand hall. Her smile was gentle, though her frame appeared frail. "Ryan," she said softly, "you came. I'm glad to see you." Ryan bowed slightly and handed her the flowers. "I wanted to thank you again for everything, ma'am. You've changed our lives in ways I cannot describe." Elora chuckled softly. "It is I who should thank you, Ryan. You saved my life, and more importantly, you reminded me of what truly matters. Kindness is the greatest gift we can share, and you embody it fully." Ryan shifted nervously. "I just did what anyone would do." "No, Ryan," she said firmly. "Not everyone would act without thought of reward. That is why your heart is rare, and why you deserve the chance you've been given." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. "I promise I'll honor your gift, ma'am. I'll work hard and make it grow. I'll make sure it helps more than just me and Lila." Elora's eyes sparkled with approval. "That is all I could hope for. You are a good man, Ryan. Never forget that." In the weeks that followed, Ryan devoted himself to building his new shop. The old corner store on Maple Street had been abandoned for years. Dust and cobwebs coated every surface, the floorboards creaked, and the windows were cracked. Yet, as he walked through the empty space, he could see the possibilities. "This will be our little corner of hope, Lila," he said as he held her hand. "A place where we can fix things and maybe fix a few hearts along the way." Lila's eyes widened with excitement. "I want to help too, Papa. I can paint the walls with flowers." Ryan laughed softly. "Yes, little artist. We'll make it beautiful together." For days they scrubbed, painted, and repaired. Neighbors peeked in curiously, asking questions and offering old tools or spare paint. Slowly, the shop transformed from a dusty ruin into a welcoming place with freshly painted walls, neatly organized shelves, and a sturdy counter Ryan had built himself. By the time the sign went up, "Hope Repairs," Ryan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The shop was more than a building. It was a promise fulfilled, a symbol of resilience and kindness. Customers began trickling in. At first, it was neighbors bringing broken radios or lamps, but soon word spread across the town. People came for repairs, but they also came for Ryan's advice and encouragement. His gentle, patient nature drew them in. One afternoon, a young woman brought an old sewing machine. "I don't have much money," she said shyly. "I just want it fixed so I can sew for my family." Ryan smiled reassuringly. "You don't need to worry. Let's work on it together. Sometimes learning to fix something is worth more than paying for it." As they worked side by side, the woman's face lit up with hope. When the machine whirred to life again, she laughed with joy. "Thank you. You've given me a chance I didn't think I'd have." Ryan nodded, his heart warm. "That is all the thanks I need. Remember, when you can, help someone else the way you were helped." Elora continued to follow his progress, sending small gifts for Lila, books, ribbons, and treats. Though she rarely visited, her presence was felt through the thoughtful gestures that reminded them of her enduring care. One day, a letter arrived from her assistant, inviting Ryan to the mansion. Curious and slightly anxious, he closed the shop early and took Lila with him. Inside, Elora waited in the garden, looking weaker than before but smiling warmly. "Ryan, I wanted to see how you've been," she said. "This shop of yours, it fills me with pride." Ryan knelt beside her. "It's only because of you, ma'am. You gave me hope." "No," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "You took the gift and made it your own. That is what matters. I only provided the opportunity. You built it with your heart." Her words struck him deeply. "I hope I'm worthy of it." "You are, Ryan," she whispered. "You will always be." Time passed and Hope Repairs became more than a shop. It became a gathering place for the community. A place where neighbors shared stories, children laughed while waiting for their toys to be fixed, and adults found a listening ear. Ryan's dedication, honesty and warmth transformed it into a hub of hope, exactly as Elora had envisioned. One evening, Ryan sat outside the shop with Lila watching the sunset. "Papa," she said softly, "do you think Madame Elora knew we'd do all this?" Ryan smiled, placing his arm around her shoulders. "I think she did, Lila. That's why she believed in us. And I think she would be very proud." The sky turned golden and pink, and the first stars began to appear. Ryan felt a quiet peace settle over him. He knew that the gift he had received was not just the shop, but the opportunity to create something meaningful for the community. And in that moment, he understood what Elora had always known. Kindness, once given, ripples outward, touching lives in ways that last far beyond a single lifetime. Months later, Ryan received a visit from one of Elora's lawyers. The man handed him a set of legal papers. "Mrs. Winton had one more gift for you," he said quietly. "She wanted to ensure that you could continue your work with the community center she once planned to support." Ryan looked through the documents and realized that ownership of an old building in a struggling neighborhood was being transferred to him. With it, he could expand his work, teaching skills and providing support to even more people. His hands trembled as he signed the papers. "I'll make sure her faith in me isn't wasted," he whispered. Lila hugged his arm. "Papa, it's like we have a second chance to help even more people." Ryan smiled at her, feeling a surge of hope and determination. "Yes, my little sunshine, this is just the beginning." Elora's influence continued to guide him. Though she was no longer physically present, her lessons in kindness, honesty, and generosity shaped every decision he made. Ryan realized that true wealth was not in money, but in the lives touched, the hope given, and the love shared. The once struggling father, guided by a simple act of kindness, had built a life of purpose, leaving a legacy that would carry Elora's spirit forward for generations to come. And as he stood outside Hope Repairs, watching the laughter of children and the smiles of neighbors, Ryan finally understood the full meaning of her gift, a chance not just to survive, but to thrive, and to ensure that the kindness he received would never end. A few weeks had passed since Ryan's last visit to Elora. The mansion felt empty now. The garden she loved so much had fallen quiet, the roses swaying gently in the wind as if whispering her name. When Ryan received the news that she had peacefully passed away in her sleep, he stood in silence for a long time. Lila watched him with wide eyes, holding his hand tightly. "Papa," she asked softly, "is Madame Elora gone to the stars?" Ryan nodded slowly, kneeling beside her. "Yes, little one. She's gone to rest now. But she's happy. She told me she would be." Lila's eyes glistened. "She was kind. She gave us everything." Ryan smiled sadly. "She did. And now it's our turn to do something good for others, just like she wanted." The day of the funeral was cloudy, and the air carried a gentle chill. Dozens of people gathered near the mansion's garden, where Elora would be laid to rest beside her husband. Many were employees who had worked for her for decades. They whispered softly about her generosity, about how she helped people quietly, never seeking praise. Ryan stood near the back, holding Lila's hand. He had worn his cleanest shirt, though it was still simple. He didn't want to stand out. He just wanted to say goodbye. When the ceremony ended, one of Elora's lawyers approached him. The man was tall and kind-eyed, carrying a folder. "Mr. Ryan," he said quietly, "Madame Elora left a letter for you. She wanted you to have it personally." Ryan's breath caught. "A letter?" The man nodded. "She wrote it a few days before she passed." He handed Ryan a sealed envelope with Elora's familiar handwriting. Ryan held it carefully, his fingers trembling slightly. That night, after putting Lila to bed, he sat at the small table in his apartment and opened the letter. "Dear Ryan, if you are reading this, I have gone to rest. But I want you to know something before I leave this world. You reminded me what it means to live with kindness. You saved me not only from a heart attack, but from loneliness. I spent my life surrounded by wealth, but starved of family. You and Lila gave me back something I had lost, faith in people. For that, I will always be grateful. You once told me you would help others someday. I believe you, so I have made arrangements to ensure you have the means to do so. My lawyer will explain everything. Remember, Ryan, the truest wealth is not money, it is compassion. Share it, and your life will always be rich. With love and faith, Elora. Tears rolled down Ryan's cheeks as he folded the letter. He stared at it for a long time, feeling both grief and gratitude. The next morning he met with Elora's lawyer again. The man handed him another set of documents, legal papers transferring ownership of an old community center building in the city to Ryan's name. "She wanted you to have this," the lawyer explained. "She believed you would use it wisely." Ryan looked at the papers in disbelief. "A community center?" The lawyer nodded. "It's in a poor area. Many people struggle there. Madame Elora wanted it to be a place where you could help them rebuild their lives. She trusted your heart more than anyone else's." Ryan felt a lump in his throat. "I'll do it. I'll make her proud." Over the next few months, Ryan worked harder than ever. After finishing his shop duties, he would visit the old building every evening. It was run down, cracked walls, broken windows, faded paint, but he saw its potential. Neighbors watched curiously as he repaired each part little by little. He used his savings, sold a few old things, and accepted help from local volunteers who admired his effort. Lila often came along, painting little flowers on the walls with bright colors. "Papa, it will be pretty soon," she said proudly. Ryan smiled. "Yes, my little artist. Madame Elora would have loved this." After 6 months of hard work, the building stood ready. The sign above the door read in bold letters, "Elora Hope Center." On opening day, people from across the neighborhood gathered outside. Children ran around excitedly, and the smell of freshly cooked bread filled the air. Ryan gave a small speech, his voice shaking slightly but full of emotion. "This place is not mine," he said. "It belongs to all of us. A kind woman named Elora believed that kindness can change lives. She helped me when I had nothing, and now it's my turn to pass that kindness forward. Anyone who needs help, food, repairs, learning, or just a friend, you are welcome here." The crowd clapped warmly, and some even wiped tears from their eyes. That evening, as the lights of the center glowed softly, Ryan sat on the front steps beside Lila. Dozens of people were inside, children reading, mothers sharing meals, and workers fixing old machines. "Papa," Lila said, resting her head on his arm. "Madame Elora would be happy, right?" Ryan smiled at the stars above. "Yes, little one. She's smiling right now, I know it." Weeks turned into months, and Elora Hope Center became a beloved part of the community. Ryan taught people how to repair things, how to find small jobs, and how to rebuild confidence. With the help of volunteers, they opened a small reading corner, a soup kitchen, and even a free repair training class. One day, a young man came to him with a broken fan and a worried look. "Sir, I don't have money right now. Can I pay later?" Ryan looked at him kindly. "You don't need to pay. Just help me fix this fan. Learn while we do it." As they worked side by side, the young man smiled for the first time in months. When the fan started spinning again, he laughed. "Thank you, sir. I didn't know I could do this." Ryan patted his shoulder. "Now you know. Remember, when you can, help someone else too." Years passed. The once struggling father became known as the man who built hope out of hardship. The little girl who once held his hand through tough days grew into a bright, kind young woman. Lila often told new visitors about Madame Elora, the woman who changed their lives forever. "She wasn't just rich," Lila would say with a smile. "She had a rich heart." Every year on the anniversary of Elora's passing, Ryan and Lila would visit her grave. They always brought fresh daisies, her favorite flowers. Standing beside the marble stone one sunny afternoon, Ryan whispered, "I kept my promise, madam. The kindness you gave me has reached hundreds now. You'll never be forgotten." A soft breeze rustled through the trees as if nature itself was answering. That night, back at the center, Ryan stood outside watching the glowing windows. Inside, laughter and chatter filled the air. It was everything Elora had dreamed of, a place where broken lives found repair, just as he once had. He placed a hand over his heart, the letter she wrote still kept in his coat pocket. "Thank you," he murmured softly. "You taught me that one act of kindness can change the world." The stars shone brightly above, and the city around him buzzed with life. Somewhere far beyond, he liked to believe Elora was smiling down at them, proud of what her small act of generosity had grown into. And so, the struggling father who once had nothing became a beacon of hope, carrying forward the legacy of a woman who believed that kindness never ends. Because sometimes, the greatest fortunes are not written in gold or stone, but in hearts that choose to care.